Okay, think back for just a second. When was the last time a fable, a myth, or some story featuring a talking animal actually taught you a profound life lesson? We usually just write these stories off as simple entertainment for kids, right? But if we look a little closer, we realize they're actually highly sophisticated tools for transferring knowledge. They're universal, they're incredibly memorable, and they wield immense power over how we learn and how we connect with one another. Welcome to this explainer on the utility of the tale. Today, we're going to look at the exact mechanics of how stories impart wisdom across entirely different regions and contexts. We'll be pulling from formal college examinations, rich Himalayan folklore, and classic Hindi moral tales to see exactly how narrative is utilized to teach us how to think, how to remember, and how to act. So here's our agenda. We are examining storytelling through three distinct lenses today: Tales in Formal Education, the Folk Tales of Sikkim, and traditional Hindi fables and morals. Let's jump right in. Starting with Section 1, Tales in Formal Education, and how stories test true comprehension. We usually think of language exams as being purely about strict grammar rules. But to really understand how the academic world relies on literature to test actual comprehension, let's look at a real-world source. Think about a BA final year English language exam paper from Government KRD College in Nagawar. It's a 75-mark paper designed to test graduating students. But what's really fascinating here is exactly how it tests them. For a whole 15 marks, students aren't just asked to conjugate verbs. They have to write out narrative summaries for historical and literary pieces like Rana Pratap and Anton Chekhov's Death of a Clerk. But get this, the ultimate test of their comprehension is the third requirement. Students are asked to retell the poem The Mouse and the Snake, but specifically from the point of view of the victorious mouse. You absolutely cannot fake that by just memorizing vocabulary. You have to deeply understand the text, the characters, and the whole narrative flow to shift perspectives like that. It creates this really fascinating split. On one side, you have the literature summaries testing narrative comprehension, perspective shifting, and raw creativity. On the other side, the exam tests strict grammar, the hard rules like antonyms, conditional sentences, active and passive voice. It brilliantly shows that true language proficiency needs both. It needs the rigid structure of grammatical rules, sure, but it also desperately needs the fluid, empathetic understanding of storytelling. Moving on to Section 2, Folk Tales of Sikkim and Preserving Indigenous Identity. Now that we've seen how stories function in the classroom, let's head up into the majestic Himalayas. According to our educational source from Vedantu, Sikkimese folktales pull heavily from nature and mythology, and they're commonly narrated in indigenous languages like Lepcha, Bhutia, Nepali, and Limbu. And guys, these are not just simple bedtime stories. They are living, breathing survival vessels. By keeping these tales alive, the community is actively preserving ancient languages that might otherwise fade away, all while passing down their unique environmental knowledge to the next generation. It's honestly amazing how perfectly these narratives map to real-world lessons. In The Clever Crow, you have a small bird outsmarting larger animals, teaching us that wit beats brute force. The Kind Tiger totally flips the script on a scary predator to teach compassion. The Magical Bamboo uses a humble plant to show how hard work pays off for a poor family. And The Origin of Sikkim uses mythical beings to explain the literal landscape around them. They're using the familiar to encode the universal ethics of their entire society. Which brings us to Section 3. Hindi fables and morals, and delivering timeless lessons through animal characters. Let's look at how these concepts build into deeply practical advice, using some traditional Hindi fables. The Central Institute of Indian Languages Archive has this great, punchy little mini-story called The Clever Rat. Basically, a rat gets caught by a very hungry cat. But instead of panicking, the rat uses his brain. He tricks the cat into putting him inside a bamboo basket by promising to fetch an even better meal, and boom, he swiftly escapes. It's simple, but it completely reiterates that same cultural theme we just saw in Sikkim. Calm intellect will always overcome physical strength and immediate danger. Now, let's step it up with a slightly more complex narrative arc. Step 1 is the trap. A naive deer completely ignores his buddy, the crow, and gets lured by a manipulative fox right into a farmer's net in a barley field. The fox is just chilling in the shadows waiting for his free meal. Step 2, the warning. The loyal crow finds his trapped friend, but instead of freaking out, he gives this brilliant advice: play dead. And Step 3, the escape. The farmer shows up, assumes the deer is already dead, and opens the net. The deer bolts, the farmer throws his stick in a fit of rage, and guess who gets hit? The scheming fox hiding in the bushes. It is such a satisfying story, but the actual purpose here is to define true friendship. A true friend isn't just someone you hang out with. It's the one who gives you that tough, critical advice, warns you of danger, and uses their intellect to stand by you in times of deep trouble. It really makes you think about your own real-world relationships, doesn't it? Who is the crow in your life, and who might actually be the fox? Okay, one last profound Hindi fable for you. This is the tale of Gyanu the owl. Gyanu is this wise older bird who notices dry summer leaves piling up at the base of their great tree. Relying on his years of experience, he foresees a massive fire hazard and warns the whole flock they need to evacuate. But naturally, he gets mocked. The arrogant younger birds, an eagle and a crow, tell him he's just old, cowardly, and losing his edge. They completely refuse to leave their comfortable home. Well, surprise, surprise, the fire comes. The arrogant birds get trapped in the smoke and flames, finally realizing their terrible mistake. In this final act of grace, Gyanu, who's been watching from a safe distance, swoops in and guides the regretful, desperate birds through the smoke to safety. And when they finally apologize to him, Gyanu drops this incredible line: "Mistakes aren't bad, but correcting them in time is true wisdom." What a brilliant, stark reminder of the absolute value of heeding the experience of our elders and having the humility to admit when we are wrong before it's too late.
So, we've seen exactly how stories test our academic comprehension, how they preserve the beautiful indigenous cultures of places like Sikkim, and how they hardwire deeply practical moral frameworks for our daily lives. The utility of the tale is just undeniable. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative question to chew on. If you were to write a fable today using animals or elements of nature, what modern life lesson would you turn into a story? Keep learning, keep sharing those stories, and thanks for joining me on this explainer.